thank you so much for being here. Today, I have the privilege of introducing you to someone that I met a few weeks ago and who is on the front lines of caring for children and their families in the foster care and adoption world. Brooke DeLoach is a senior care caseworker for LifeLine Children's Services, where she specializes in foster care licensing, trauma-informed training and support, and case management, and a lot more. Trust me, I really condensed this introduction. I am so excited to hear more of her story and to learn about LifeLine and share that with you. So without further ado, welcome, Brooke, and thank you so much for being with me today.
Mindi, thanks for having me. I'm so excited. This is my first podcast, so I am pumped.
Yay!
Because I love talking to people, and so now I get to do it, and then other people get to hear me talk, which is,
Exactly. Well, and I have to toot her horn too, because she has been traveling this week and got back in the wee hours of the morning. So She really is a trooper for not putting this off a little bit, which you absolutely could have. But okay, so let's jump in. We're going to start with LifeLine. What is LifeLine Children's Services for those who have never heard of it?
Yeah, so LifeLine Children's Services is a parachurch ministry. And so our mission is to equip the church, so equip the body of Christ to manifest the gospel to vulnerable children and families. And so we do that in a lot of different ways. My specific role is in foster care. So I do assessment, support, training, equipping for foster families. And kind of walk with them from beginning to end in their process. But we also have pregnancy counseling ministry, where we meet with moms in unexpected or crisis pregnancies and help them navigate what their options are. And then we have a domestic infant adoption ministry, a domestic special needs ministry, and then international adoption, and then education and counseling. It's kind of like very holistic. Yeah. But the heart is really that we can let the church be the church. And so we're always, we met at a church.
Yes, we did.
And so that's often where you'll find me. Like at any given time, I'll be in a family's house or at a church, and really just putting this need for foster care and adoption and serving these moms and dads in these populations at the forefront of the Christian sphere, I guess.
Yeah.
So in the church.
Well, I love that, because so many churches, want to help with this kind of thing, but they don't have the organization, they don't have the manpower, they don't have the, staff. And it's very difficult to start a program, for the least of these, for foster care and even adoption and all this other stuff. So to be able to partner with you guys, who you guys have done it so well, and you have the structure and the infrastructure to where you can kind of just plug it into churches that exist, and they can just come along, but they can come alongside you and have that outlet to minister and be the church. Exactly what you just said. You give churches the opportunity to be the hands and feet of Christ in this particular arena. And I think that is super, super cool. So you offer, you're an A+ student. You've already answered lots of questions.
Sorry.
So no, this is good. This is good. So the goal, there's lots of goals, but you kind of just said that, to partner with the church, help the church kind of be the church. So what's the history of LifeLine? How was it born?
That's a great question. So it started in 1981 out of I guess a pregnancy home. So for women that didn't have somewhere to go, that were pregnant, they could come to this home. I don't know the technical term for it.
I think everybody knows what you're talking about.
So. And have a safe place to, nurture their children and do all the things. And so out of that, we had women who weren't ready to parent, didn't want to parent, had other things going on in their lives where they just couldn't. And so then out of that came the adoption ministry. And then it just really expanded from there, which has been really cool. So it really started with serving these moms in really tough situations and giving them a place to kind of land. And that's really always been our heart. That's what I really love about LifeLine, is that we're not in this just to connect someone with a child. Like, this is really about kind of the whole triad of adoption and foster care. Like, we really want to care both for the child and really for like that mom and first family. And so that kind of flows throughout all of our programs, which is really, really cool. I love it.
Yeah. Well, I love that too, because like you said before, it's a holistic approach. And I know like pro-life people are often accused of not caring about anything, or not caring about the mom and not caring about the child once the child is born. I mean, that's an argument that you hear all the time, and it's just not true. I mean, it's just not true. There's I think 2,700 pregnancy centers that offer free resources for a very, very long time. And there's organizations like LifeLine who really, like, that's just the beginning. The pregnancy is just the beginning. Saving that child's life is the beginning. And then you work through the whole process with them to, adopt if that's what the situation demands, to restore to families later on after foster care, all these different scenarios. So, that's really cool. I'm like holistic things are good. Well, and I also love how the Lord has used it. It started as one thing, and he has just expanded that. Like he does. He grows things and turns something very small into something complex but beautiful and multifaceted, and yet still so on mission and so on point. So, I love all of that. That's fantastic. Okay, so why is it important to have a Christian organization in this sphere tackling these issues? Because we know there's like lots of people who say they care about kids and care about moms and stuff, but why is it important to have that Christian element presented?
Yeah, that's such a good question. I think it goes back to like our mission within LifeLine, and it's to make the gospel known, because oftentimes I tell people in foster care world, I'm like, there is no hope in foster care. It's a broken system. There's a lot of brokenness within it. The only hope is in the gospel of Jesus. And so when we're engaging with within foster care and adoption and pregnancy counseling, it's really heavy work and can be really heartbreaking for a lot of different reasons. And most often it's these moms really care and love their kiddos. And in my experience in foster care, the state is stepping in and removing children because of abuse or neglect or some other reason. And I've never encountered a mom or dad that just like hates their kids or doesn't want anything to do with them. They like deeply love their children. And oftentimes they grew up in the system themselves. And so it's just like this cycle of like, I'm doing better than I was raised, but I don't have like these extra resources. I don't know what it looks like to parent in, a way that doesn't cross the line into abuse or neglect. Or, you have moms who are deciding between like, do I leave my kids at home so I can go to work and make money to put food on the table? Or do I not go to work and then I can't feed them? And so those are like those situations. And so it's so heavy. But God is in the middle of it with us. And I think that's where like the importance of like Christian organizations or Christians like doing this work is that like you carry this hope and light with you that your circumstances aren't the end. And God is not done with you yet. Like God is with you. God is for you. And the only thing that matters is Jesus at the end of the day. Like I can never guarantee, these moms and dads that they're going to be able to get out of the situation they're in. Like, obviously, we do what we can to help equip them and support them and scaffold, and so does the state. But I never know if I'm going to be able to end all of their bad circumstances that came to their child coming into foster care, whatever the case may be. But I do know that, like, God provides hope that I can't give someone. And so I think that's why it's important, because the heart isn't like that someone would be able to adopt, or that someone
right.
Could foster because it feels good, or like
right.
whatever the MO is.
Right.
The MO is like people being transformed by the power of the gospel.
So I love that, because you give this holistic approach, but it's centered on Christ. You know, he is our solid rock. He is the foundation upon which our lives are built. And you guys have carried that into your organization, which is exactly how it's supposed to be done. That's the biblical method, is you're not trying to have this organization that's apart from Christ, or just like one aspect of the title of Christianity. You are founding and grounding everything on the gospel, and you are giving these people true hope. You know, we can't program people into believing something or fixing a generational sin overnight, or, you know, behavioral modification, only because they're adults and they have lots of baggage, and we all have lots of baggage and different perspectives and worldviews. And so you guys are meeting those practical needs, but then you are also meeting the greatest need, which is presenting them with the truth and the gospel. And of course, you can't control, you know, what they do with that. However, your persistence in presenting that is huge, and it's important, because we have no hope. We can never have hope if hope is based on our circumstances. We only have hope in Christ, and we really need to start telling people that until it starts hopefully sinking in, because nothing's ever really going to change. You can have superficial change apart from Christ. Like, that is possible. You know, we can change some things about our lives and our circumstances, but as far as true transformation, that just doesn't happen apart from him. So I love all of that. I say that a lot. I think it needs to be like a second slogan of our, our podcast, but I do love that. Okay, so that's why that's important. And you kind of answered the next question, which is fantastic, because he had A+. And okay, so that's why it's important for a Christian, for the Christian aspect. Why is just your organization at all needed in our current culture today? So I know I asked you for like some statistics, because I think it's a lot worse than people realize. You know, people know, oh, there's a problem, but until you really give it some teeth, it's hard to kind of really comprehend just how big some of these issues are. So give us a little bit of insight into that.
Yeah. So I'll kind of zoom out with like adoption and then zoom into foster care, because I always kind of lean towards that. But, you know, so with international adoption, I think the stat is like, might be less than 2% or even less than 1% of children who are orphaned internationally will ever be matched with a family, which is crazy. Yeah.
That low.
Yeah.
Of a percent.
Super, super low.
Wow. Yeah. I had no idea it was that low.
And I'll double check on that, but like I think
it's low.
It's very low. Yes.
Wow.
And so obviously huge need in international.
Right.
They're awaiting children in other countries who are, and some countries have foster care systems similar to the United States. A lot of them are still like in the, I don't know what to call it. I still have orphanages, whereas like the U.S. doesn't have that anymore.
Right.
And so, you know, these kids don't have any kind of like long-term family, and like we know that's so important. And so yeah, international, huge need. Domestic. So when I'm talking about LifeLine's domestic infant adoption program, I always say it's a waiting family program. And so we don't have an infant orphan crisis in the U.S., which is like a huge praise. Thank you, Jesus.
Right.
Like,
right.
I love to say that, and I don't feel bad about it. I'm like, I'm so glad that there's not like these babies that are waiting for homes. Like they're all safe, which is great. So, so that is a waiting family program. We're not like, you know, like having a ton of babies coming into our organization, and similar, you know, with foster care too. So with foster care, like I have a lot of people who will come in and say like, oh, I only, you know, I feel comfortable with 0 to 5. I'm like, that sounds great, but like you're going to be waiting for a minute, because the crisis, when we're talking about like the need and numbers, it's really older kids and sibling groups. And so I think, and you know, not to knock anybody that feels that their capacity is within that 0 to 5, because I never want to push someone to take a teenager when they were like not prepared for that, and that ends badly for everybody. But that is the real need, you know, when we're talking about kids that are, you know, sleeping in government offices or bouncing around from home to home. Those are like our teenagers, and I love them so much. I can go on a whole thing about them, but. So if we're talking numbers as far as foster care goes, in the U.S., there's about 400,000 kids in foster care, kind of at any given time. South Carolina, I pulled up the stats this morning, so let me look at my little sheet. So in South Carolina today, we have, not by county, 3,290 kids in care in South Carolina. You know, and like zooming into the low country, that number's around... let's see, probably around like 400 kids. And so, and oftentimes those kids aren't actually placed like in their same communities. Like they're moved around to different school systems or different cities or different parts of the state. And that's kind of true for any state, foster care program. And so, it's so huge that we have organizations like LifeLine. There's other agencies that work towards this goal too of making sure that kids are in homes and they're in stable homes. And with foster care specifically, like we're hoping they're in stable homes until they can go back home to their first sort of biological family. So that's a big difference between adoption and foster care, is that foster care, the goal is always that they get to go back home. And then with adoption, it's obviously permanent. Like that child is yours. So. Yeah.
Wow. I had no idea the international adoption babies and kids are just waiting and really without a hope, like without any hope of being adopted. That is just heartbreaking. And then to the flip side here, it's not babies, which is great. Yes, that is a praise. That is something to be very, very, very grateful for. But your heart also breaks for these older kids and teenagers who are just drifting. And because they might be hard, or because people, you know, for a lot of reasons, which I get. I mean, that's an intimidating situation too. But the fact that they're separated from places where the only places maybe they've ever known, and they have to go live somewhere else. Oh, that's so hard. That's so hard. But again, there's organizations, and God is still moving. And we talked about that, but we are so, actually, I think we were praying about this earlier, but when it's easy to kind of look out in the culture and just be super overwhelmed and super depressed by what we see, because it's just so awful. And you hear stories that are just so awful, but we need to celebrate the wins that he gives us. And those are absolutely wins that he is moving, and he is raising people up, and he's continuing to fund and to grow organizations like LifeLine to really be on those front lines for him, which is just fantastic. So I love all of that. Okay, let's shift gears a little bit to you. How did you specifically end up joining LifeLine's team?
It's such a not silly. It's just a fun story because it just makes no sense. And so when I was in college, I like had this quarter life crisis, I guess. I'm like, oh my gosh, like I am not good at chemistry, so I cannot be an equine veterinarian, and my whole life is destroyed. So that's what I was thinking. And this is pre me knowing Jesus. I got plugged into a campus ministry, came to know Jesus, and then, I was church hopping in Athens, Georgia, and they were having a event one Sunday at an announcement one Sunday at a church I was at. It was actually in a bar, the church was. So, classic University of Georgia.
Hopping, yes.
Yes. Go Dogs.
Church hopping. I just got this like image in my mind.
Yeah.
Bar hopping, church hopping. Anyway, sorry.
I was doing. And so I went from bar hopping to church hopping. So
praise Jesus, eh?
Yes, he changed my life. So I was at this church. I couldn't even tell you, what it's called other than it was in a bar, just because it's funny. But they were talking about this event that was coming up in like 2 weeks called Stand Sunday. And it was about caring for adopted families, children who had been adopted, and kids in foster care. And I was like, that sounds like something I'd be interested in. I don't know why. And so I showed up at this event, which ended up being really an event for foster and adoptive families to get like education credit. And so I was like 19 and just stood out, obviously, like a sore thumb. Like, I didn't have any children. I didn't have a spouse. I was just, it was so weird. So, so everybody noticed me and they're like, why are you here?
Why are you
like,
here?
I don't know. I feel like I'm supposed to. And they had a speaker, like a main speaker. His name is Jason Johnson. And he's awesome. And so I credit him and Jesus to me getting into this work. But and then there was a breakout session with someone from LifeLine. Her name was Whitney. And she was teaching on trauma-informed parenting, how to help kids feel safe, and how to help them heal in your home. And I went up to her after that talk and I was like, I want your job. Like, how do I do that?
Wow.
So, she was so gracious and, invited me to her house and made me soup. I think she was like pregnant at the time and like just talked to me about, you know, what her life looked like, what her job looked like, about LifeLine. And I just always kind of remembered that. And then after I graduated, I worked for a campus ministry in Athens. And then COVID hit in 2020. And the ministry I was working for, was a mentoring program. And so obviously that couldn't happen, or we ran a mentoring program through the ministry, but that wasn't able to happen anymore. So I had to figure out a job, and I obviously changed my major from that kind of event to social worky. I'm not technically a social worker. My degree was in human development, but so I was just looking for jobs and remembered Whitney and how kind she was to me and everything that she had told me. I had like notes in my computer from like 5 years prior. So I went on their website and just looked at careers and saw where they had a foster care and adoption caseworker position, and I applied for it, and they interviewed me. Well, they tried to interview me the next day, but I was actually driving to Southwest Colorado for a mission trip. So I'm
interested, but hold on.
Yeah. I can call you in a church basement or like at this campsite in Arkansas on our way out there. But so yeah, that's how it happened. I interviewed for the job while I was on a mission trip in Colorado, and they hired me. Really graciously, and I moved states into South Carolina, and I actually lived with my boss for a weekend when I first started because I didn't have anywhere to live.
Welcome. Let's make sure we made a good choice with you.
I know. I was crazy, I think, for going. I'm like, oh my gosh. But then she was crazy for inviting me because she really didn't know me. Anyway, it was
so fun.
Yeah. It was fun.
Oh, that's really cool, though. I love your story. How God, it just works in so many mysterious ways. Where we're just like, we have such a dead set track. You know, we're laser focused on one thing, and he's like, oh, just you wait. Just you wait. And your story is not going to look anything like the story that you thought, but it's going to be so much better. And you're going to have such more of an impact in the kingdom. Not that, I mean, we all can be used in kingdom work, regardless of our particular vocation. But in your particular story, man, you've had such a reach, and now it's such an amazing organization, literally spreading the gospel and being God's hands and feet and mouthpiece and heart to people. So that is fantastic. So you are a caseworker. That is your senior care caseworker. That's your title, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. So what do you do? What does that mean? I think a lot of people might speculate and might kind of know, but explain to us, what does that mean?
Yeah. It's a great question. So the short way to say what I do is I recruit, assess, train, and support foster families. And so my recruitment looks like going to churches or talking to people. I think one of the things that I asked when I first started is like, why don't we recruit at like, I don't know, like a school and talk to like parents that are there, go to like a PTA meeting or like basketball game or, you know, some kind of like bigger event thing. And my boss, her name's Kathy Leak, she was like, that's not our mission. Like, our mission is to equip the church. And so we're going to where the church is and recruiting there. Because our ultimate goal is not that kids would be in homes, but that people would know the gospel. Yes. And so if we go to the wrong place to recruit the people, then we're not in line with our mission. Right. And so I like, that's always stood out to me. And I've always remembered that. And so it's helped me kind of keep the gospel at the forefront too, because I think it can be really easy to get into this and just be like, I have to save all the children.
Right. Which is a worthy goal. I mean, that is a worthy goal. Absolutely.
Yeah. But you're like, I'm going to take them all home with me. Because I've definitely not tried, because that would be stealing children. But like...
Not literally.
No, I have not stolen children. So everybody knows. But no, I feel very passionately about these kids, because I know them, I know their stories, and it's so easy to want to step in and be the one. But then you kind of get into that whole savior complex of like, this isn't actually my role right now. It doesn't look like, I'm not the foster parent right now. I'm not the adoptive parent. I'm the one that supports that team. So, so that's the recruitment, the assessment. So that's kind of like classic home study when you see on movies, like the caseworker coming in with like their notepad and asking invasive questions, and you know, they're super asking about their sex lives. I ask them, about all their lives and trauma and all the things. And it's not, I know, I was trying to tell families, I'm like, I'm not trying to like be the person with a white glove that's like, let me just see all of the mess in your life. You know, it's really, how can I equip you? Like, where are the places where you have really awesome strengths as a family? Yeah. And let's like hone in on those things, but also let's see your growth areas, because when a child comes into your home, like, it's going to get rough. Like, you're going to have less time. You're going to it's going to be uncomfortable because you have a new human in your house that you're trying to learn. It's like a roommate that never leaves. And well, I guess that's what roommates are. But like, but it's not like someone visiting. Like, it's someone that becomes a part of your family. So there's adjustments that have to happen because of that. On top of parenting with the state and all the extra things that kind of go with foster care paperwork. So let's make sure that you and your family, and we have single women that foster as well, but let's make sure like your family system is equipped like over 100%, so that when you do have those extra stressors that come in, your whole house isn't burning down. Right.
Well, you need to start out from a place of strength. And that's true with almost anything. If you don't start from a place of strength and health, you know, and I love also how you guys are so diligent about having people go into this eyes wide open, right? You're not glossing over things. You're not trying to sell them on something, this rainbows and butterflies and it's going to be lovely, like just myth. And then to where they get into the reality of it. And it's not that, there's not beautiful things that happen. I'm not saying that, but like, it's hard. This is a hard thing. This is a new person. This person is going to come with some kind of trauma. Even in the best circumstance, this child has been through trauma, whether it's been, one time or a lot, I'm sure you can correct me, a lifetime maybe in some cases of just experiencing all kinds of horrible things. And so like, that's going to come up. And so you're telling parents and you're telling families, like, you have to be aware that this is happening. You have to be equipped, and you have to be, I love that about that. Your answer is like, they have to be in a place where they can handle that. They have to be over that 100%, because if they're at 50%, it's going to, just like you said, it's going to come crashing down, and they have nobody benefits in that situation. The child certainly does it, and the family doesn't either. So I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I really love that point.
And I love that. I don't want to create like, the misconception that you have to be perfect to come into foster care or adoption. Because that is, I know no one that's perfect. And when I'm doing that assessment piece, if they tell me, oh, we love everything about each other and like we communicate amazingly, I'm like, you're a liar. Which is negative.
Exactly. In the negative column. Like,
giving away all my assessment secrets. But, no one is perfect. And I always say, like, I don't need or want a perfect family. Like, I want someone who's willing. So like, you can be messy. Like, I'm messy, right? My bar hopping day is to church hopping. Okay. So, mess is okay, but like, how have you worked through this? What systems do you have in place in your life so that when things do get messy, who's going to come around you and walk beside you in this? You know, and that's kind of that other piece of like, maybe your something isn't fostering or adopting, but your something has to be something. So is that walking alongside a family and supporting them and, you know, doing a meal train for them when they're sick or when they get a new placement, or really intentionally praying for them, but not just like praying in your prayer closet, which is great, but like send them the prayers you're praying. Cause that is like,
preach.
So good.
That is such a big thing of mine. I'm trying I've been saying this in just all the different contexts, but it's like, yes. Is it good to say that you're going to pray for someone? Of course it is. But we also live in the South and the Bible Belt. And like, that's just kind of like saying, oh, sweetie, you know, like, oh, you know, bless your heart. Like it's almost taken that same, and I'm not trying to doubt you know, a lot of people are genuine and they really will pray, and that's fine. But take the 3 seconds, or longer, hopefully 30 seconds, but take the tiniest bit of time to pray with them in that moment. And I am like queen of text message prayers, which sounds like I'm really anti-technology, but to be able to send somebody an email or a text where they can read that in their time, and at their leisure, and then go back and reread it. It is so special. I have gotten the most positive feedback from people who I don't just say, I'm praying for you. Write out the prayer. Or voice record the prayer. I've never done that, but I just thought about that. I've never done that. Why have I never done that before? Anyway.
Because then you get the tone and the passion and the heart.
Exactly. Oh, I'm going to have to like it. But I type a lot. I'm a writer, so that's probably why. But like it doesn't take very long. It really doesn't. But that means so much to someone. Just imagine, I mean, put yourself in that position. Would you rather get the text, I'm praying for you, or would you rather get the text with a prayer? Like everybody chooses the latter. So I love that point of clarification that you make, because that's a soapbox that I find myself on frequently.
And to your point of like being in the Bible Belt, I think it's really easy to be like, I'm praying for you, but if we don't actually pray, that's sin. So watch out, friends.
Oh, girl.
And I've done it. I've done it. Okay, I will be the first to admit, like I've been like, oh yeah, I'll pray for you, and then I totally forget what I was praying for, or like just didn't. And that's like.
Yeah, but it's bad too, because if you say, and I'm not going to get off totally on prayer, but like there's a difference between praying like a bulleted point list, right? Like having your, you know, okay, well, this is my prayers for today. Please be with Susie and Charles and be with this and this and this and this. Okay. Yes, that is praying, and you know, there's validity, but like get some meat on that. Get some meat on those prayers. Get specific. And when you know these people who, you know, you are supporting, I think most everyone probably knows someone who is a foster parent or someone who has adopted a child. Ask them how you can pray for them. I mean, that's allowed, you know? You don't just have to like make something. How can I be praying for you? How are you struggling right now? You know, I don't have the capacity to be a foster parent right now. I don't really have the capacity to even, you know, maybe be that respite, you know, babysit for a night or whatever. There are situations where you just can't do that. But everyone can pray, and everyone can pray targeted, detailed prayers. And if you don't know what to pray, then ask them. So, okay, I'm getting off that soapbox, but I love that point.
We can do a whole other one on prayer.
Okay.
I love prayer.
Let's do it.
Yes. Okay. So,
okay. Yes.
So I love training. That's like the best part of not the best part, but I just love teaching and I love equipping. And so for foster families and adopted families have their own training. If they go through LifeLine, it's called Rooted in Love, and it's really holistic training that people get to hear from just a lot of different parties. They get to hear from an adult adoptee. They get to hear from a birth mom. They get to hear from adoptive families and social workers. And so it's just so rich. And so I love that. And I started during COVID, so I never got to go, but I always hear stories and like I've seen clips of it, but it's just so powerful hearing, you know, really from all of those different pieces. And you know, selfishly, I wish I could do that in foster care, but it's a little bit harder to get a bio mom or a child in well, I can't really bring a child in foster care because of just confidentiality. But So I guess if anyone out there is an adult, a former foster youth is what they refer to themselves as, hit me up, because I would love to have you.
There you
go. Like our classes. So, so I get to teach our 2-day foster care training and with some coworkers, and it's really just a time to correct some of the misconceptions around foster care. I think a lot of people, in my experience, are just scared of kids in foster care in general. Now, at that point, when they're in like foster care training, like they've probably kind of gotten over that hurdle maybe a little bit, because they're like going through the process.
Right.
But with that, like, these kids aren't like out to get you or like attack your other children or your animals. It makes me so mad when I see, and this is a soapbox for me, but what's that new TV show that came out? Good American Family, with the girl who was adopted from like Ukraine, and she's like trying to murder her mom or something. Like those sorts of like movies, like Orphan, it just creates this picture that these kids are villains. And that is just not true. Like, these kids, you walk next to them in the grocery store, they go to school with your children, they're, like, the same. Like, there's nothing really different about them.
Exactly. Yes. You don't walk around and you can have a lineup of children like, oh, you're definitely one of those. Like, it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous.
It makes me very frustrated, because I think the media does not help with that. But
no, it rarely does. That's
another podcast.
Yep. I'm just gonna write notes.
It makes me sad, because these kids are getting such a bad rap because of what other people hear, see in the news, because it's like, oh, this happened. And you're like, okay, well, that's never happened. At least in my experience of doing this for 5 years. But so I get to really talk about how, these behaviors that might come out when a child's in your home aren't because they're trying to be destructive or mean or hurtful towards you, emotionally or physically. It's that they're responding out of like this unmet need that they had. And so if a child was severely neglected, they're gonna do things to get their needs met that don't really make sense. And so, a really easy one is food insecurity. So if a child grows up in a home that never had food available, you'll see food hoarding in your house. Like they'll hide food under the mattress, in drawers. Like you'll find wrappers everywhere. It's not because they don't think you're going to feed them, but their brain and body has been programmed really to protect themselves and make sure they always have food. And so
that kills me.
Don't get mad at them when you find, rotten bananas under the bed. And they're probably not bananas, it's probably like candy or something.
But still,
but still, and it's just hard. Or like, I don't know. That's like my one example that's easy to go to. Yeah. Or if your child, let's say you have like a teenager that's skipping school, right? Or like not engaging in school at all. Well, let's look back at their history. Maybe they've been in 7 different schools in the last 8 years, and they don't know the material that's being taught, so they feel stupid. So they're just gonna not try. It's easier to not try. Or there's just so many different things. So when we think about behaviors like that kids are having, and really with adults too, like what is the need under that behavior? Like what is this child trying to tell me? Because they don't have the language to say, especially younger kids, they don't have language to say like, oh, I never had food in my house, so I always hide this food to make sure that I feel safe. Well, they probably don't even
realize that's what they're doing either in a lot of these contexts. Like they're not therapists. They haven't self-diagnosed and, figured out what's going on in their brains because, and especially like when you go through trauma, I've had just enough counseling training to be dangerous. But when you have like trauma in your life and you've experienced just horrific circumstances, lots of your parts of your brain just kind of go in survival mode, right? You're just like shutting down. You're surviving. That's all you're trying to do. And you don't want to think about this. You don't want to do. So they have not thought this through. They are not sitting in front of a mirror. Why am I acting the way that I'm acting? Let's do a little diagnosis. Like, right? So they not only not have the language, I'm sure most of them have no clue why they're doing what they're doing either. And that goes, I'm again, correct me if I'm wrong, but even up to teenagers too. I know adults who are fine, who don't know why they do the things that they do, right? Like, so this is like, it's hard enough for us to understand kind of our tendencies and why we do things, but you introduce a child to that scenario, and it's a child who's gone through really terrible things and who has been traumatized by this, that, or the other. You can't expect them to just tap you. This is why I'm struggling with it. You know, like, it's just, when you put it that way, it's preposterous, but you're right. We need to see it differently. We need a whole perspective shift instead of like being on guard and like, this is a foreign, being over here who's trying to, this is the enemy. They're trying to disrupt my life. It's like, no, like, be Jesus in that situation and see them, see what they've gone through, be there with them. And I didn't, again, mean to cut you off, but that's I love that change of perspective, and we just have to realize that. So please, yes. So training is a huge part of it.
So huge. Yeah. And, one of the things that I think about too, and I'm not a parent, but this is, sometimes my experience as a child to parents, and then watching other parents parent, or having parents come talk to me about their concerns. It's like, our children's behaviors, or our children just in general, are our report cards. So like, I think a lot of times we feel pressure from like feeling insecure, like out in public. If our child has a meltdown, then we're like, your anxiety rises, and you're like, get off the floor. Like, that's not going to help them, because they're already, in meltdown mode. They don't hear anything you're saying. No. And so, like, a lot of that training is like, how do I disarm this child's fear response, help them feel safe, and keep moving? So it's a lot of that. And I try to bring in different people. Like I said, I can't bring in children in foster care, but again, former foster youth, let me know.
Reach out.
But I do get to bring in foster families that share their different perspectives, and I really try to prep them well. Like, hey, I want you to share more from like what your child was experiencing and some of those things. And one of the activities that we do, and I forget where it's from because I don't want to be like, this is my activity, but I did not create this. It's called that's good. Yeah, it's called Imaginary Journey, and what it does is it really makes you feel like you're the child that's entering foster care. So you kind of walk through. I kind of guide the process. Everyone's eyes closed, and it's kind of it makes you feel like you're being removed from the home, and then we kind of debrief and ask questions like, did you want to go back to your family? Like, how did you feel, being introduced to this new family, and they were so excited to see you and meet you? They're like, I wasn't excited to meet them. Like, I don't want to be there. Right. So like, I think people who go through the foster care process genuinely want to serve and are genuinely excited to kind of make it through this process, because it is a lot of paperwork. And so I always try to remind people, like, you're excited because you've been praying about this and pursuing this maybe for 6 months or longer. Right. But the child that enters your home that day is not excited to see you. And so you really need to be aware of that and like match where they're at, because they're probably going to be really scared, really sad, or really angry. And those things need to be okay, because we don't want to dismiss these kids' emotions and say that they don't matter. Like we want to immediately kind of meet that need and take care of them there. And so let them feel the emotions that they have. And that's me getting more into like therapy land too, because I'm about to graduate from grad school with that. And then, after families are licensed, LifeLine gets to be the one that walks alongside families through the whole process. And so we're the ones that, get the calls from the state about children that need homes, and then call families, and we're checking in on them, seeing how things are going, getting them connected to resources. So it's busy, and every day is different. And I love what I do. It's really a gift. So, and I always say it's like an honor, you know, like it's an honor to walk alongside these families that, like, number one, let me ask you all these invasive questions,
right,
to begin with. But also, like, letting me kind of be a part of this, because I'm not in a place where I can foster right now. Right. I know that's something that I want to do in the future, but I get to be kind of the sideline player in it and walk with you through it. So it's special. I love it.
Oh, that is fantastic. I love all of that. Well, then to your point too, I think a lot of people, I love how you made that distinction between, like, you're being excited because you've, like, finished the process, you're fulfilling the call that God probably has placed in your heart, and you're, like, finally there, right? You've been running this marathon and you've crossed the finish line, and now, you know, you're standing in front of a child who is here. Yeah. And so, but I think we would be too quick to assume just what you said. They don't want to be there. Like, they've been removed from the context probably they've only known for their entire life. And a lot of them probably don't even realize that it was bad or that anything was wrong to begin with. So they're just being placed in this other thing. And, you know, we obviously objectively know differently. Like, our home is safe and our home is not better, but just safer. And so we're just like, well, they should, you know, respond to that. It's like, no, they didn't realize. So anyway, I love how we need to just exercise our brains, and we need to exercise our hearts, and we need to be challenged not to see things just so by the letter of objectivity, but we need to enter where they are and see them for who they are, and ask the Lord very strongly to reveal that, you know, because they're probably not going to be a lot of help for you seeing kind of and feeling where they are. So ask the Lord to give you that discernment, ask the Lord to give you that wisdom, and to know what to say and know how to act. And, you know, and the other thing too, these children have love languages, right? Just like everybody else. And so some are going to probably love physical touch, hugs, you know, just want to, like, be hugged. Some of them might not. Some of them words of affirmation, some of them little gifts, maybe. But the point is, like, we need to do our due diligence and do it in conjunction with the Lord through a lot of prayer to meet these child's needs, and not just throw our assumptions on them and then, like, get upset when they don't fall in line with, like, our version of objective reality. So I love that. And just a thing, like, that exercised my brain. So I'm grateful for that. So that's fantastic. And you've done this a little bit, but I'm going to kind of skip around because I don't want to hijack your entire day. But one more question before we kind of move on to, like, the action points. Can you share, I love stories, and I think everybody loves stories, but can you share a story, maybe one particular situation or story that's really touched your heart, or God used to open your eyes in a profound way through your years at LifeLine so far?
It's so hard to pick one.
I
know. So many. Man. Yeah, oh my gosh, I have this folder in my emails where I, like, save emails from families that they send me, and, like, answered prayers, or, like, when we,
what a great idea.
It's just so fun. I just love it. And so if I feel discouraged, I go back and read that. But man, there's so many. There's a couple. Okay, so I'll start with this one. This was close to when I first started, but we had a large sibling group, and they were placed in 2 separate foster families within LifeLine, just because the logistics of that number of kids couldn't fit together, which often happens. But since the families were both licensed through LifeLine, we got to connect them to one another, and so they would go to the park all the time, like, hang out all the time. They try to get the kids together as much as possible outside of, like, the state mandated visits, which was really sweet. And at court, I think it was like a few months after they had been in care, they had found kinship providers, like an aunt and grandmother, I think, that could care for them, that lived together. And so at court that day, both of the foster families went and got to meet the aunt and grandmother for the first time, and talk with them about their story, like why they became foster parents. And they were talking about the reason, you know, was like a lot of their faith, like that led them into doing that. And the grandmother and aunt started, like, weeping and praising the Lord that their kids were somewhere that shared the gospel with them and that we're safe. And so that's like one of my favorite stories is like just how God worked in that. And then I have another family, and they had 2 young girls with them. And when they got to go back home, over time, the girls being in care, that foster family had been able to develop a really close relationship with the parents, which was really special, to the point where they could like come over to their house and like hang out and have dinner. And that was really close to when they were reunifying. And those parents were really young and didn't really have any support. They didn't have family. It was just the 2 of them and their kids. They'd really struggled with, I think like some homelessness and housing instability, stuff like that. So, I think this still happens, but, at Easter, that same year, the kids went home, the parents just showed up at the family's house for Easter, and they're like, here we are, we're ready for Easter. And they've like continued to do that, which is so cute and wonderful, and like how it's supposed to be. Because I don't want the biological parents to be the enemies. Like they're on the same team.
No.
Like you know, and like if you have the opportunity to form a relationship with them, like don't be weird and like force yourself to be friends with them.
Right.
They probably don't really like you at first
like
either.
Show up like
yeah. But form that relationship with them while their children are in care, and then when they do go back home, you get to play like aunt and uncle and like you know, like this family did, and come over for Easter and holidays and all the things. Aww. So yeah, it's really sweet. I had another teenage boy who was in care with a family, and they really got him involved in boxing. And so so when he went home, he actually ended up moving close to where the foster family was, and so foster dad would still go pick him up and take him to boxing every week. Which is like so cute. And it's like you always kind of have this child and family as part of your life. Like that's like the hope in it. Like if there is any earthly hope in foster care, like it's just the sweet like relationships that get to be formed through a really broken and awful situation to begin with, and then God redeems it. And so those are like a couple that stand out. I can think of like a ton more, but
no, I love those. Well, and just, you know, highlighting the relational aspect of it, highlighting how God is so sovereign and he puts you in that position exactly when you're needed for such a time as that. And it's not an accident. It's not an accident. And even, you know, stories that are a little harder, or placements that don't end up working out, because I know that that's a reality too. Yeah. Like it's not a waste of time. He is still using you. He still has a plan. He still has a purpose for it. And it's just really, really beautiful to see that. And then it is supposed to be a relationship. Like you don't have to have a relationship with these people. Like if you saw someone struggling, like our innate reaction just as a human being, but of course much more when we are Christians, is to help them. Like we want to help people. We see someone who is in need, we want to help. We want to do everything possible. And this is like literally what being a foster parent is. You are getting to help in such a dire and really crucial situation. You're able to give that child, and then the prioritizing having a relationship with the biological parents, again when appropriate, and you know, all of that fun thing. But when that happens, you are telling the child, like, I'm not trying to be your mom or your dad. Like I am your friend. Yes, I'm taking care of you. But, you know, and then when you have that ability to have that relationship, I'd imagine that just does all kinds of wonderful things for the child too. They're like, oh, well, my real mom and dad, like, you know, these people have been taking care of me, so they must be okay. It's just got to be this like really wonderful lifelong thing that happens there. That is really special.
I've had some kids who will say and continue to say like, oh, this is my white mom and dad, and this is my black mom and dad. So they just like differentiate that way, which is really cute. Those are normally for way younger kids. I don't know how teenagers say that, but
that's really funny. Hey, well, however the distinction needs to be made, that's awesome. Yeah. Oh, that's fantastic. Okay, so we're going to start wrapping up, but one thing that we talked about at the beginning is, just briefly, because I knew we were coming back to it, everyone can do something. And so my personal story, actually, I don't have a story with foster care, but when we have 4 daughters. And after the first 2, we really were praying about if we wanted a third or if the Lord wanted us to foster. And so we started like going to classes. We started talking to foster parents and just kind of pursuing that route. And I won't get into the whole story, but God made it very clear that that was not the route that he wanted us to take. And it wasn't through like some super high drama, situation where it really wasn't. It just was such a clear, this is not what I want for you. However, that doesn't mean that we're just never going to be involved and never going to care. And as if God says no to this specific aspect of foster care and adoption, that means you just write the whole thing off, right? So no, we still have to be involved. We don't have to. We get to be involved. We still get to be involved. And there are so many different ways to be involved. And this is, I think we talked about this a few weeks ago, but this is something that breaks my heart, is because it's like throwing the baby out with the bathwater. And I don't know why about this specific ministry does this in people's minds, where it's like foster, adopt. I can't do that right now. So then they just don't think about it anymore. But there are so many different capacities where people can get involved. So can you shed some light on that?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. So many ways. And so many options. Like the first being prayer. Like I think that's like just a command in scripture, and everyone can pray. And we already did that soapbox, but your prayers are powerful and effective. Like that is scriptural. So please pray. And pray for like the kids, pray for the families, pray for like both families, like adoption, foster care, bio, and birth. And pray for like social workers, pray for like the government to make wise choices when it comes to like funding and laws and all these things, because it really does impact this whole system. And so there's a lot of things that you can pray for. You can like wrap around a foster family or adopted family or church. That can look like a lot of different things. It can look like more intensive stuff, like I'll do some babysitting for you for free. Like offer it for free. That would be great.
Please. Don't be like, I charge this. Can I help you?
I charge $100 an hour. Just offer it for free and let the parents have a date night. Like they need to take care of their relationship too. So you can do that. You could also get licensed to do respite care if you don't know foster families. It's the same process as getting licensed to do traditional long-term foster care. But if you're like, I don't know any foster families, Brooke, or adopted families, like call me. I'll set you up. We got it. So there's that. There's acts of service, right? Like going back to love languages. Like, can you drop off a meal? Can you help with all the laundry? Can you run some errands? Or just drop off like grocery gift cards, DoorDash, gas cards is great. There's things like that. There's ministering to social services. So whatever your state is, here in South Carolina, it's DSS. Ministering to those caseworkers, because, I am kind of on the front lines, but I'm a little bit removed. The caseworkers, like state caseworkers, are the ones pulling kids out of their homes, doing all the case management for these families. And honestly, they're really everyone's enemy. Like no one ever likes them or thanks them for their job. And so like, go love on them, like pray for them, do meals for their office, like the county office, ask if they have any needs. Please, this is another soapbox for me. Don't just donate stuff to foster care and adoption ministries. Like call them and ask what they need. And don't just bring stuff because you think it's a good idea. And also don't bring me crappy stuff. I've gotten donations of suitcases and clothes that are like ratty or broken or dirty, and I threw it in the garbage. Actually, one time I did tell someone they could take it back, but I didn't want it, and they were really offended with me. And I was like, well, I'm offended with you for bringing this trash for these children.
Exactly.
So, that is a big soapbox for me, because if we're going to donate or give something to a child in care or adoption or a biological family that like just reunified with their children, like give them things that are nice and new. Like it doesn't have to be like from Zara, but like you could go to Target or Walmart, like that's fine. But don't give them the hand-me-downs with holes and stains on them. That's rude.
I know. It is. And that's a big thing for me too. So we've donated a lot. I love to take our girls shopping. So we'll go shopping at Walmart or Target, wherever. And we'll go and they get to pick out things for the babies in the pregnancy center. And so we'll go and then we'll deliver it. And I really want them to see, just to do that, to get like consistently. But that's, at one point, and we donate gently used items too. But when I say gently, like you can't tell that they've ever been used. Like there's no holes, there's no stains. Like I inspect things. We did a big donation of gently used stuff when we moved, just, plowing through everything. But and they watched, we all did it. Is there anything even remotely wrong? Is there any discoloration? Because these are sweet babies who need, and children and teenagers who need like the best. Like give them the best. They haven't gotten the best in life. Okay, like we should be bending over backwards to give them awesome stuff because like it just anyway. So I understand that soapbox, and I'm with you. Like if it doesn't have a tag on it, it's going to get thoroughly inspected. Thoroughly inspected because I completely agree with that. Okay, again, I cut you off.
No,
continue. But I agree.
Even around like the holidays, like asking like if you can sponsor a child, and like ask them for a wish list. Like I've had kids tell me that they'd never made a wish list for Christmas before. And I think a lot of us can be like, whoa, like I never thought about that. But they never got asked because there wasn't options to do that, right? Mom and dad are just trying to put food on the table. So, ask to sponsor a kid. Gosh, I'm trying to think of other things. LifeLine has another thing, which is so awesome. It's called Families Count, and it's a parenting class for biological parents whose children are in care at risk of being placed in care. And oftentimes their case plan from the state to keep their children or reunify with their kids is to go through some kind of parenting class. And so LifeLine created one for the church. So if you're a church out there and are interested in being a part of that, you can sign your church up to do it. And then become a volunteer at that. So there's a lot of different ways. So obviously like teaching the class is a big one.
Necessary.
We ask that churches like provide transportation and meals, and so signing up for that. It's a 7-week class, so like signing up for 7 weeks to do meals and transportation for those parents. And then childcare, so if they still have their kiddos in their home, like having people to watch their kids while they're in class. And then also signing up a kit. So that means like kind of, it's not like a social worker, but it's walking alongside that parent while they're going through the class, and hopefully beyond too, where you're intentionally praying for them, encouraging them. And then you can also point them to resources or really just hear them out and like hear their story, because that's even therapeutic. And so there's obviously a training that goes with that, but that's a really, I would love for like every foster parent on the planet to go through that, and like or at least go to like the graduation and hear these parents' stories of like where they were and now where they've come, because in those 7 weeks they have just really intense parenting classes, but also like a presentation of the gospel every time, and that parent advocate is sharing the gospel with them and praying for them. And they don't have to sign up for this class. They can sign up for any class they want to, but this one, they're told it's like faith-based, and so you're signing up, so you're coming. But
you signed on the dotted line.
yes. So, but we're really trying to remove every barrier possible for a family so that they can have that option. And the previous state director of South Carolina, he just left this last year, but he was like, I want Families Count in like every county in the state. And so if you're a church out there in South Carolina or anywhere, I guess, would love to have you on the Families Count train, because it's such a cool ministry. So, and there's a lot of ways that people can get involved.
Yeah, that is so cool. Well, I love the creativity in that. There are so many different options. Literally everyone can do something. Literally, there's always ways to be involved. And even if you need to, and here's another thing too. I want to encourage people listening to set this as a new part of your life trajectory, not just I'm going to send, donate this or, buy a bunch of this one time and then forget about it. And, you just checked your box. Like make this a rhythm, whether it's twice a year, set it on your calendar, whether it's every quarter, whether it's once a month, do something on some kind of consistent timetable because there are times that are going to arise in your life and there are ministries that have really urgent needs, like when there's storms that come in and you want to help victims with that or, whatever. But this is something that we all need to be doing consistently and persistently. And so I just want to, that's just a little nudge out there for everyone listening is don't just like say, okay, well, I'm going to, donate and, get all high and mighty, donate lots of money. I'm going to donate this, and then just check it off and then walk away. Like, no, let's make this a rhythm. Let's make this a rhythm of life. Let's make this a rhythm of churches, like something that we can do consistently. So those are like the creative, like, I know I'm not called to foster and adopt personally, but there's other ways. But then obviously there's the route of fostering and adopting. So what is the easiest way for people to onboard with either through LifeLine?
Such a good question. So the easiest way is that we have a pre-app online. And you can click foster care, you can click adoption, you can click all the things, and then you get
complicated
contacted.
Then.
Right.
It's very complicated.
And I can send you the link to like put in the bio or whatever.
Perfect.
But,
yes, I will.
It's super easy. You just fill out a pre-app and then tell us what you're interested in, and then someone will be in contact with you to kind of tell you about next steps.
Awesome. Well, that is easy enough. And so, and I didn't want to be like, nobody's going to want to foster or adopt. That was not my intention. I probably should have started with that and then got to the more creative things. I probably got that backwards, but I guess I was just like assuming like, yes. So we obviously still need people to make that step and to step up to the bat and foster and adopt. Like the need is still there. And it's obviously we already talked about that. So and here's another thing just in general for those who are listening, when God is nudging you to do something. We don't always like the nudge. We don't always understand the nudge. Like he nudged you to go to this, this event and you stuck out like a sore thumb and you didn't really know why you were there. But he used that powerfully. And so this is, my encouragement is say yes, lean into it. Even if you don't understand it, even if you don't kind of even have any expectation of what it would mean, even if it's something that you never thought you would do, just be obedient, be faithful, be obedient. Take that step. If he's nudging you to do something, do it. I promise you, it's not going to end poorly. Like our obedience to the Lord always ends really, really well. It may be different than what you expected. It might be hard. I'm not trying to say it's going to be easy and you're going to fly on clouds, but it is rewarding. And we just, I've never, not once in my life, and I think everyone can agree with me, do we look back having obeyed the Lord and regretted it, right? We look back and regret times where we don't, and we see opportunities that were missed. But I just really want to put it out there. If the Lord is nudging you, he should be nudging you in some way. Because again, everyone has a place in this, but if it's a little bit bigger of a nudge than you probably were anticipating, lean into that, explore that, talk to people. You don't have to just start filling out applications and stuff. Like I'm sure Brooke would love to have a conversation with you and really just start the research, start talking, start praying through it. And we need more hands and feet physically on the ground, on the front lines in both of these different ministries. And so that is my kind of challenge, is to seek the Lord and be sensitive to his spirit speaking. And when he does, do it. Do it. You will never, never regret it. Well, Brooke, I am so thankful for you taking the time, especially we're recording this in the middle of the afternoon where she could have a nap after being up so late. So maybe there's still time. But I am just so grateful. I loved meeting you a few weeks ago, and I'm so grateful for not only what you do, but what LifeLine does. And I'm going to, take my own advice. Is there something that we can pray for you specifically about?
Oh, that's so sweet. Wow, I have so many prayer requests in my repertoire. Pray for me all the time. I really think I'm starting in a new season of transitioning into hopefully our counseling team. And so there's excitement and a little bit of grief, I think, that goes with that, because I'll be slowly transitioning off of foster care. I'll just be in it in a different capacity. So there's sadness in a way that goes with that, but also joy, because I am excited for, what the Lord has next. Prayers for that transition, and then really just for endurance for our teams at LifeLine, that we could just really continue to focus our heart on the Lord and doing the next right thing, if that makes sense. Like, that's what I always like to think. Like, I'm just doing the next right thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that. Well, I'm also going to take my advice and I'm going to pray with you. So, for you and with you. Lord, I am so thankful for Brooke and for LifeLine and for how you are mobilizing your people to take care of children and take care of families and to be the church. Like, this is a part of what we're supposed to be doing. I really wish there would never have to be a governmental program for anything, because your church was meeting the needs. But I want to lift up Brooke specifically. And as she is entering a time of transition, Father, I pray that she ends this current chapter as well as possible, with as much grace as possible, with as much joy as possible, that she would focus on all of the wins and how you have worked so powerfully in and through her time there and revealed yourself to her in such amazing ways. And that, Father, that she would grieve well, because I know closing a chapter, there always comes with some sadness, but then also that you would fill her position and continue to bolster the foster care team with such strong, motivated, powerful people who are just so in love with you and are so committed to being your hands and feet and heart and mouthpiece in this capacity. And the same goes for everyone working at LifeLine and everyone in the pro-life movement and whoever is involved in any of these kinds of ministries. Father, I pray that you do give them endurance and perseverance, and that wouldn't just be like something they have to wake up and like talk themselves into motivation every day, but motivation comes from you, and our motivation and our energy and our stamina comes from who you are, what you've done on the cross for us. We're doing a victory lap right now, and I think we need to all remember that a little bit better. So I pray for endurance and perseverance. I pray that the enemy, that you would bind his efforts and that you would unleash your spirit in and through the hearts and lives of not only the staff and the teams in LifeLine, but volunteers and churches and ministry workers, Father, that you would have your way, that you would take back just so much of what is broken in this world, and that your kingdom come and your will be done on earth in this capacity in and through LifeLine as it is in heaven. We are so thankful for you and ask that you would accomplish all of this and so much more in the name of your holy Son, Jesus. And it's in this we pray. Amen.
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 Thanks,
okay,
Mindi.
Brooke, go take a nap. And thank you and thank you again so much. Friends, if you have any questions for Brooke, I am going to put the contact information for LifeLine at the bottom of this episode. So just click on that. If you have just random other questions, I'll answer them too, and I'll get you where you need to go. But we need to join in prayer. We need to be these hands and feet. I know I keep saying that, but it's so important and it's so easy, and everyone has a role in this. So make it a new rhythm of your life. Be encouraged and lean into the Lord, because he has such amazing plans that you have no idea what he's going to do, but it's going to be awesome. So thank you again, and have a great rest of your day.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks. All right. Bye, friend.
Bye.